CURES is sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.
Helping you lead a healthier life. This is CURES.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CURES show, where we explore cutting-edge wellness from credible sources for your mind, body, and spirit. So if you are wondering, what do we do about all these wellness trends for 2025? I've got my Aura Ring, my fitness tracker, all the supplements that people are into, and so much more. We want to make sure you know which ones are worth the hype. So today we are talking about those wellness trends for 2025. And joining me in conversation is Dr. Jennifer Stagg. She is the founder and medical director of the Whole Health Wellness Center in Farmington. So thank you, as always, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
No, I think it's great because, I'm often texting you or Instagramming you reels going, is this for real? Is this a real good thing? So before you spend your money on this stuff, we all, I think investing in our health is an investment. Yeah. But there is a lot of hype out there.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot to weed through. And yeah, I do get a lot of texts like, what about this? Is this okay?
Is this right? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just start with the Aura Ring. So I asked for this for Christmas. I think a lot of people did. I've been wearing it. I like it. And you say that's actually a good tracker. It's a useful trend.
Yes, for sure. So that's like an excellent validated bio tracker, and a lot of those are popular in the Apple Watch and Whoop and all of these like biometrics. It's really great because people are getting this check-in, right? So they're really getting data and understanding their sleep, and they're understanding things like heart rate variability on the Aura Ring. So I have mine too, and I've been using it for a few years. And I think it's really great, and I have a lot of patients that use it, and it's really a good thing.
So you think they're accurate and they're useful and they could help make positive changes in your health? They would be worth the investment?
Yeah, for sure. So you're like, the data is legit for one thing, and you can even like track your cycle if you're a woman. Mm-hmm. You can check temperature changes and look at your cycle. I think it's a great idea. The other thing, just in terms of like sleep, for example, people will start to maybe make some lifestyle changes because they want to see their score being better, and they might go like, oh, I need to get to bed a little bit earlier because I want that sleep score to be better. So those check-ins are a pretty good tool.
So if you're wondering, and maybe you've seen the Aura Ring, but it's a ring, you wear it, it's, I guess, checking all of your pulse points. It gives you a lot of information. It wasn't earth-shattering to me when my Aura Ring was going off saying I should rest. My readiness score was like down in the 40s because I was sick. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting that it knew that. And I guess it gathers more information as you go. What about just wearing like a Fitbit, or, do you think just a tracker in general is good, or we should invest a little bit more?
Yeah, I think trackers are good in general, but yeah, something like the Aura Ring where it's checking like your pulse ox. So it's actually looking at oxygenation in the blood. It's checking things like heart rate variability. So the data you're collecting from investing a little bit more, I think, is worth the investment.
I think it's so interesting that if you have a flex spending account, they're paid for now. Yeah. So you can, get an Aura Ring or even a Whoop or something. So you have to see what's right for you. I went and did it because of the axiom that what we measure, we can improve. So I wanted to lose a little weight. I want to be healthier. And so I guess I can't lie to myself when this tells me maybe I wasn't as active as I should have been.
Yeah, exactly. So of course, yes, it's tracking your activity level and giving you subtle reminders through the app like, oh, you haven't moved in a little bit, let's get going. So those are good things.
And it's
like
easy for busy
coach.
people.
Yeah.
It like suggested a meditation and I could just press play. Mm-hmm. You could do your own or whatever, but just reminding you. It's actually interesting. I think these trackers show how much physiological stress we're under, even when I don't realize I'm stressed. The ring will say you're stressed and you need to take some breaths. And so is that a big thing, is that we're just under so much stress and people are living like it's normal, but it's hurting our health?
So true, yeah. And this one, again, I have a bias. I have an Aura Ring, so I have a lot of experience with it. But I had an Apple Watch too. I just prefer this. It's like, I feel like it's easier and I like the app a lot more with it. And I'm not getting paid by Aura.
Yeah, no. I got mine at Best Buy.
Yep.
I mean, actually, my husband did because it was a gift. Yeah.
But the stress piece of it is really important. important. And even, I'll have work with patients who have these rings, and we'll talk about like, okay, what is it showing in terms of stress? And even personally, I find like, okay, what really improves that like those stress scores is when I actually like lay down and do nothing. So yes, like a meditation, but literally like don't look at your phone 5 or 10 minutes and just take like a true break. It's hard to do. Like I posted on Instagram about this. It's like that was something I was working on.
Of doing nothing.
Just like the power of doing nothing for not that long, and it actually equated to changes in that stress score on there.
So before we move on to the next one, biometrics. People say, what's that? How do we explain biometrics so that people can understand what it is in this trend?
Yeah, it really refers more so to like technology that is collecting data about your biology.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when it not only is teaching you, but sometimes we're going to maybe change behavior more when we have a visual reason, like, oh, whoop, it just said I was stressed. I need to lay down, or I need to go to bed. It'll suggest, why don't you go to bed a little early tonight? I think I'm more apt to do that when I have an outside source telling me.
Oh, yeah, for sure. When you have that data, it makes a difference, yeah.
Okay, another thing that people might be seeing is a continuous glucose monitor. I actually wore one for a story, and it was incredible to me, the information. Also very changing, but people will think a glucose monitor is for someone who has diabetes. What are these CGMs or continuous glucose monitors? How would they help us lose weight or get healthier?
Yeah, so it gives you real-time data about how your body is responding to the food that you eat. So of course we know like, oh, I shouldn't eat this many carbs, or, like just generally, but you might think some of your choices are not that bad, and you look at your data from the CGM and you go like, oh wow, I had a spike in response to this.
That happened to me. I chose something healthy on Super Bowl Sunday. This is when I was wearing it.
Yeah.
And I chose to get sweet potato nachos because they were made with sweet potato chips and black beans, and I'm like, okay, I'm staying away from all the fried wings. But boy, did it spike, because there were all these carbs, and I've since learned I can't digest that many carbs. But it was all, organic sweet potatoes, black beans, all this good stuff. But my glucose went through the roof.
Yep. Yeah, and this is like common in insulin resistance. So not having that diagnosis of prediabetes or diabetes, you can still have these spikes where your blood sugar is just like going up too quickly, and it's in response to something that has too high a glycemic load. So
too much sugar, too much carb for the average person to understand. So, I mean, maybe you've heard about the glycemic index. It can show you, things that are lower. But eating healthy, but eating the wrong things, you could still be hurting your body or gaining fat.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So it has to do with like what quantity of that carbohydrate you had, how you combined it. So that's another thing you can see, again, if you're collecting this data with a CGM. You maybe have your starch and combine it with like healthy fat, like olive oil. You have a little bit of protein, and so then you can get away with some of those carbs versus just having them on their own. So if you're just having pure starch, it can spike your blood sugar, right?
I think that's one rule that when I was little, my doctor told me, because I think I've always had a little bit of a low blood sugars, which I thought was the opposite of diabetes.
It's a precursor.
But it's actually like, if you're anything with blood sugar could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, as a kid, there was a don't eat sugar on an empty stomach. Probably a good advice for all of us, but that's what you would see. I mean, to the point that I would notice they want you to do these experiments of what if you eat your carb first and your protein second. I had the exact same meal. One day I was hungry, so I ate the grapes in the car on the way home and then the grilled chicken.
Yeah.
Total spike.
Yep.
Next day, ate the grilled chicken first, then the grapes, no spike. So even simple changes, this is where this technology could help us really make strides, because we can see in real time what's happening to us.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's how our like human brain works, right? So I could tell you something, you go like, yeah, that sounds right, and then you just like do the same thing, these habits that are kind of like comfortable and easy for you to do, and you don't realize what it's actually doing until you actually collect data and go like, oh wow, and it's very eye-opening. So I think it is another way to like get change or compliance. We talk about that in medicine. Like, okay, we can counsel people on dietary changes, but are they going to be compliant? And these are the types of tools that really help to lead to compliance.
How do we get a glucose monitor?
Yeah, so it used to be that you had to get a prescription from your doctor, but now just late in the fall of last year, there's the first approved direct-to-consumer, meaning you don't need a prescription, CGM. So it's through a company called Stello, and it's an excellent device, the same type that would be prescribed by your doctor, and you can just order it yourself. So you order, you can either get a subscription or you can get just like a one-time purchase of 2 CGMs, and you would wear one of them for 14 days, and it's only $99, which I think is quite affordable for 2. And then if you subscribe, it goes to it's 10% lower depending on how long you subscribe to the service, or it could be 15% lower. So it's actually quite affordable for
and you don't have to wear it forever, but you do it long enough. I was through a company called NutriSense. That was the one that we were testing. But I only did it for 2 weeks also, and I feel like I learned enough in the 2 weeks. Most of us eat similar things every day.
Yeah.
So you immediately see, they asked me to experiment with, what if you drink coffee on an empty stomach in the morning? And what would that do? That may not be the best thing anyway, but what does it do? Some people, it spikes their blood sugar. I was sort of relieved to see nothing happen to me. So if I didn't eat anything before the coffee, it was okay for me. But I guess for certain people, we're all so different. So this is how you can see what works for you. What about that other thing I'm seeing on Instagram you blow into it called Lumen? It's supposed to see how well you do carbs. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, and I can't remember all the details on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's more and more of these devices coming out, and even a while back I had been told that they were working on even contact lenses that are going to detect a lot of different biometrics.
That's kind of scary.
There's a lot in the pipe.
Well, from where you sit as a credentialed doctor, there are companies that are working on having you wear something and then spit out the product that you should buy. That you think isn't quite there yet?
Yeah, not yet, but that's the direction some of these companies are going with, lining up using some sort of biometric and then coming up with treatments that go along with the data that's being collected.
Do we see insurance and doctors, mainstream doctors, ever prescribing this, or your insurance covering it?
Yeah, for the supplements necessarily.
Maybe supplements or a CGM or things like that you see value in, but right now we're going to pay out of pocket for those. Yeah,
for the most part, unless you do have a diagnosis of diabetes or pre-diabetes, then you could get it covered and prescribed by your doctor. But if you're really, you don't fit the criteria, but you are still probably having dysglycemia or insulin resistance, you are paying for it out of pocket right now. But as you said, a lot of FSA, HSA accounts, you can use those tax-free dollars to pay for this stuff, and it's I think worthwhile investment.
And the trend is people are definitely investing more in their health. The good thing is it can be simple. The clean eating trend is also another big trend. And that's not something that really has to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really exciting. We did an Instagram Live last week and talked about the red dye number 3 ban, which, is an excellent step in the right direction. It's going to be a couple of years before it actually comes into play. But I think there's such value in just disseminating that information and having people start to understand wow, this stuff is bad. Okay, the government is banning this. It's probably not some sort of woo-woo science. So it is a really great time that I feel like we're entering into. I think we're going to see the FDA is reviewing other food dyes, and we're going to see more, I think, bans coming on those, which is I'm delighted about.
Yeah, and I'm not here to dog the FDA, but often what we're seeing and what people are getting upset about is, well, why did it take so long? Or why was it banned red number 3 was banned in cosmetics 35 years ago, and now it's just getting banned in food. What some people I think are feeling is that they're not going to wait necessarily for the FDA to do all this. So what you're saying is we can read the labels right now, whether or not we feel these things should be allowed in our food or not, but if eating a whole food, which can be pretty quick, just grabbing an apple or some peanuts. They don't have the dyes. So that was life-changing to me when I think whole foods are fast foods, things you can eat that you don't even have to cook.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of options, and it does just really go back to this trend of people eating really more naturally, getting to like a whole foods diet, which we've been advocating for years as naturopathic doctors to get people to stop eating that ultra processed food. So not only the food dyes, all these other chemicals that are added to our food that ultimately is destroying our gut health, destroying our microbiome, causing intestinal permeability. Like a lot of the issues we have with chronic disease is coming from our food supply.
Yeah. I mean, we just did a show. In fact, look, if you're watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, look back at the episode before on obesogens. Most people had not heard that word, but they get that word because they're chemicals that actually make your cells store more fat and make us want to eat more and all those things. So staying away, that could be one thing. Now, supplements. There's a supplement, and we were joking, there was a meme out there that says, you know you're a middle-aged mom when after a girls' night you all text each other about the supplement you're taking or that you need to take. And I laughed out loud because I thought, I've done that. I've said, hey, Dr. Stagg says we need to take. All right, so let's start with berberine because the GLP-1s, the weight loss drugs are a huge trend.
Yeah.
Where we're even seeing now people not taking Ozempic or Wegovy, but doing just the peptides, the semaglutide on its own, compounding it like basically a micro dose of the heavier drugs, which are cheaper. And some people are having a lot of success with those. But you're saying there's something we can try first. There are a lot of natural products and supplements that do have clinical data that they can help raise your GLP-1s.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple of different things that we've been using in our practice that we've gotten good results with, and berberine is one of those. So berberine is something we've used in pre-diabetics and diabetics as an alternative to metformin for years and years. And it, like a milligram per milligram, it performs the same. It also has an effect on GLP-1, but we really need to dose it a little bit higher. So historically, we were doing more of 1,500 milligrams for pre-diabetics to replicate the effects of metformin at that dosage, sometimes 2,000. With trying to get closer to like a GLP-1 prescription in a lower dose, you really have to take much higher levels of
the
berberine
3,000
is what I've found in my practice. So yeah, 3,000.
Now, for the person who's saying, okay, I've heard of a GLP-1, but what is it and why does it matter for weight loss? How do we explain why this might help?
Yeah, so this is going to help, like if we think about it just simplistically, it does help with that food noise, first of all. So you're hearing a lot about like with GLP-1s that people are talking about like my food noise has decreased. That just means that you're not constantly thinking about food, your cravings for carbohydrate are reduced. So I'm definitely hearing that from patients.
Yes, I've experienced that. I'm trying the 3,000. I have a lot of friends who are doing the GLP-1s and it's pretty rapid. But I do notice if you take it right in the morning, I'm taking it, with it 3 times a day, 2 pills. I'm not as hungry or I forget to eat a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm still eating 3 meals a day, but I'm not going, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. Where I think before I was getting hungry when I didn't need to be getting hungry or craving things I shouldn't be craving. So that's what you mean when the people on GLP-1s are losing weight because, as Oprah said, I now understand what I never understood, that thin people don't think about food all day. So if you're constantly hungry when you shouldn't be, it's hard to not eat.
Right, exactly. So people who are taking GLP-1s, it's not like they're taking it and still eating the same amount of food they used to eat before. They're eating a lot less, and so that is partly why this is working.
And eating protein.
Exactly. And then the other thing then berberine does is it helps to improve that glucose regulation and improve the insulin sensitivity. So metabolically, it's also having benefit where you're going to have like more efficient utilization of glucose in cells. It's regulating like how fat is getting stored and burned. So it is doing things there as well as like people are eating less.
Okay. So berberine, and we're going to come back and talk about a probiotic that has a lot of clinical research that helps with weight loss as well, and how you can pair those two together to make it even stronger. We're just going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor.
Struggling with gambling? Wheeler Health's Better Choice program offers personalized support and treatment to help you regain control. Visit WheelerHealth.org to learn more and take the first step towards recovery today.
Though I was thinking about this going, gosh, wouldn't it be perfect? You should get a continuous glucose monitor with the berberine and see if it doesn't spike the same way. But I will say that all of these supplements, it doesn't mean you can just take them and then eat what you want. This is just, these are supporting you to digest your food better, fix your metabolism. And what you're saying is your clients are saying, I just don't want the same food, or I'm not as hungry. I can walk by that brownie and I'm like fine to not eat it.
Yeah, exactly. So it has that sort of like dual action. Right?
Okay.
Yep.
So let's talk about akkermansia. Maybe you've seen on the internet another probiotic called Pendulum, or this one's the Akkermansia company, but it's all this idea of akkermansia and that we could get skinnier if we take these probiotics.
Right, yeah. So these, we've been using this. We've used the Pendulum, and now we've sort of switched over to this product by Metagenics. And this one's a little bit different because it's a pasteurized version. So it's actually what we can call a postbiotic. So instead of being a probiotic, meaning it has like live bacteria in there, it has like dead, like pasteurized, so it's been like cooked a little bit, and it's fragments of bacteria. So that's what we call postbiotic. And those fragments affect our gut health and the immune system and the hormone signaling. So it does, there's research on akkermansia affecting the GLP-1 pathway. So that's another way to sort of access that pathway naturally.
Okay, so that's a wonderful scientific explanation, which is why we have you on. We want to hear from a doctor about why this really works. But what you're going to feel or notice is, again, more, it has green tea in it, it has chromium, so you're just less swings, less cravings. You're able to then stick to the diet that helps you lose weight, which is eating mostly just protein and a few non-starchy veggies, and really keeping the starch out of it for a while.
Right, correct. So that is also something that's going to affect your food noise, and it is having metabolic effect as well. So again, it has that sort of dual action.
Okay, so those are berberine and akkermansia. You can get these without a prescription online. Of course, you could get it from, Whole Health Wellness Center. Sorry about the mic. Whole Health Wellness Center is accepting new patients in Farmington, Connecticut. But if you search Metagenics, the Akkermansia company, or Berberine Pro, this is your version, but Metagenics makes one that you, if you're listening to this and you want to get it from Metagenics, that is a clinical grade supplement.
Right, absolutely. And they have green tea added into theirs.
Okay,
Yep.
So that's something. And then let's move on to some of the other supplements that you think are really worth calling them more than just a trend for 2025 that live up to the hype.
Yep. Yeah. So a couple of different other things that I would talk about is like the trend of like next generation biotics. So we've been talking about probiotics a lot, for years and years. What we're starting to see now is a lot of products, and they have been around for a while, where we think about like greens, right? People are consuming these greens powders, but now companies are really formulating these specific combinations of plants, and those have what are called prebiotic effects. So
like green shakes, we hear of AG, like Athletic Greens, or I was taking a local company, Green Vibrance, this idea of buying green shakes.
Yeah.
What are they, like, you think they actually matter, and how do they help us?
Yeah, so they help in a couple of different levels. So we used to really think about greens primarily as like antioxidants, right? So they really quench these like free radicals that we produce in the body. But probably the bigger, more profound effect of these particular types of like superfoods is that it impacts the bacteria in your gut. So we used to think it was just more so fiber that would feed your gut bacteria, and that's still, like, certain types of fiber are really like good at doing that, but now the different sorts of like plant pigments and chemicals in these superfoods are creating fuel for your gut bacteria. And so we can do like microbiome testing and see a shift in the whole microbial community when people start to use these really targeted prebiotic greens-based shakes that are designed to really help with the microbiome.
Okay, so we hear a lot about microbiome. That's just basically all the bacteria living in and on us. And we want that to be healthy. And when you fix your gut health, which so many people are having issues with that, but when you actually go to the root and fix your gut health, everything can change.
Oh, big time. And we're seeing that like really play out in the articles and literature that continues to be published from everything, like not just your gut, metabolically, so obesity, diabetes, that goes back to the gut. Things like neuroinflammation, big deal. Gut health, and now, which is somewhat like seems like kind of like a stretch in your mind, but when you understand the science behind it, cardiovascular disease, so problems with your heart and blood vessels, and we're seeing a lot of evidence that that starts in the gut as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just one human. It's like if there's something majorly wrong in your car, it can affect other parts. I mean, but right, we've always been like, this is wrong, fix this.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so before we run out of time, let me get into energy therapies. And I'm not talking about Reiki, although I love Reiki. These are the red light therapies. We've had them on Great Day, Connecticut. You can lose fat that way or heal faster. Electromagnetic. Tell me about those, and are they worth it?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I had listed this as another really big wellness trend. I think even like last year and the year before, we were seeing a lot more and still continuing to see evidence coming out about photobiomodulation. So that's just a fancy term for light therapy, which is essentially like energy, right? So that can shift how your cells behave in a good way and very, very safe to use. So that's excellent. And now we're starting to see more data and looking back at old studies too, validating electromagnetic therapy. So this means that you're using a device that sort of has almost like a low like radio frequency that can resonate with your cells.
Like those facial things that we see for wrinkles?
A little bit different than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like how would the consumer use
So you basically so some of the devices, we're starting to see some devices come out on the market, and you'll probably start to see these filling into your feeds on social media of like a watch, that like a device you might wear. But some of these are, in integrative clinics, and you're basically just sitting in a room and there's a frequency generator. And so it's just like how, radio waves are sort of invisible and they just like transmit across. So we're just like, our bodies and we're basically energy, right?
So change your energy, change your health.
Exactly. So we're seeing like technology that really helps with that as well. So similar to light therapy, electromagnetic therapy.
Well, speaking of, that could be good, getting your red light, but then the digital detox is a trend worth it. We only have 60 seconds left. Shout out where people can find you. And I think I also want to say the good thing is all of this is, a lot of it's driven by women's health, and that's a trend that's here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I'm so glad to say that. But yeah, we're in Farmington near the UConn Health Center. Great group of naturopathic physicians, chiropractor, nurse practitioner, and we're accepting new patients.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you take insurance.
And we take insurance.
Yeah, so full integration there. Thank you for listening or watching the CURES podcast. Always subscribe and like if you can. Leave us a review. It helps support this work. Dr. Stagg comes on and shares her time freely, which I'm so grateful for, and all of you as well. So have a great day, everyone, and be well.